Hi guys, Allison here, the Bored Housewife. Thank you so much for joining me for another week's episode of The Bored Housewife. So one question I often get asked when I bring up that I do have a podcast is if I get paid to do this. And the answer is, at this moment, no, I do this for free, which is then usually followed by kind of an awkward pause. And I can't read anyone's mind, so I don't know what the thought actually is. It could just be purely curiosity, like if this is something I get paid for. A lot of people get paid to do stuff like this, right? But I can even imagine myself that it probably sounds a little odd, like why would someone put so much time and energy into something that they don't get paid for? So that idea actually has sparked today's episode. If you've been following along for a little while, I've talked a lot about values and meaning in our lives and making sure that those align with the things that you want to do. I think our values can be great motivators into, helping us finish our goals or get to our goals and finish our projects and whatever. And one thing for me, I realized that my values were no longer serving me, so I needed to change them. I used to really value fame and money, and it was a huge motivator and why I did what I did. But now at this point in my life, I'm just realizing this no longer serves me, and it was no longer motivating. So I needed to, I still had this creative urge to do things, to create, to write, to make this podcast, but I was no longer feeling motivated to do these things. So I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. So for the last year, I've been working really hard on changing my values and making them more aligned with what suits me today. And so I'm going to share all of that with you. I do want to say, yes, making money would be really great, especially if I can make money from this. But the opportunities that I've recognized from doing this for free, are pretty amazing as well. So yes, money makes the world go around. We have to do things for money sometimes. And when you can do something that you love and get paid for it, that's the dream, right? But there's also benefits, when you finally kind of get a little bit more aligned with what you need in your life, then, there's a lot of benefits to me for doing this for free right now. So, we're going to get into all of that, and I'm going to share all of that with you guys today. If you have been enjoying these episodes, I really encourage you to please share with a friend. I would love to continue to build our Bored Housewife community. Please check out the link in the bio, and there's, links to the podcast, the YouTube page, my website, social media pages, all that fun stuff. I post a little bit more inspirational, and I've been trying to post a little bit more of fun, personal stuff on my social media, so you might find that interesting, especially some of my time here in Japan. So, I think that's about it. I am sipping on a vodka cranberry tonight because why not? So whatever time of day it is for you, for whatever type of beverage that calls for, please grab it, and cheers guys, let's have some fun. So my values that I used to have in doing the creative things that I wanted to do were very much rooted in fame and money. And I figured out that came from this need to prove myself and, not only prove myself, I guess I explained a lot of this in some previous episodes, but my mom was a single mom. She was a single teenage mom, And so you just have a lot of statistics stacked against you, and you have a lot of people that believe in those statistics. So, I didn't want to be another statistic, and I wanted to not only prove things to myself, to my family, but then to the community, that, I'm more than that. I'm more than whatever. And so I always just had like really high aspirations to be like, a hometown name almost, I guess, to like prove to them, like, see, like, you're not better than me, sort of thing. So that I carried with me for a really long time, and it was very motivating. But as I like got married, and your entire world shifts when you get married. So many things that were important to you before are no longer important. And, we were like moving and all this stuff. So, like, my entire world kind of got flipped upside down. And I quickly realized that, like, the idea of fame and money were no longer serving me. Yes, money is great. We could all use more money, right? But there's a difference between needing money to survive, wanting more of it to be able to do fun things, buy cool stuff, like, okay, that's all great, right? But there's another, feeling behind it when it's like your sole motivator for doing something. And so that no longer suited me. I didn't care about that anymore. I was like, I felt so much security marrying my husband, some that I never felt before. Especially like, it's not like we make all the money, but he has a very steady income, and I've been, working for the past like 10 years at this point, different jobs where the income is very up and down. And so, from working in restaurant industries and bars to, moving from that into like the film industry, like, I could go several weeks, several months, lots of months in between jobs and that. So it wasn't always like this steady flow of income, and money was always like, such a thing in my life. And so once I got married, I just didn't have that pressure anymore. And I realized like, just being able to, put some food on the table and have your needs met, and then maybe have a little bit on the side to have some fun is really, all I needed. And it felt so much better. And it just started to put money in a very different perspective than I had ever looked at it before. So with that, this is no longer, and I'm moving away from the industry as well, marrying my husband. So that's where a lot of this like thoughts are coming from, and just like this huge life change that happened that made me realize that like this is no longer something that is motivating me, because I wasn't writing, I wasn't doing creative things. I still wanted to, I still had this urge to create, but I had this idea like what for, sort of thing. And it's like, especially being away from the industry and, the film and television industry and trying to write, it was just like, what is this, like, what am I doing this for if I can't sell it, if I can't get famous from this, so it was like kind of, thoughts like that I had, that I didn't realize how rooted my idea, my like values were in those types of things. So from that, I really started thinking, I was like, okay, I need to change my value. And it's taken me a long time to figure it out. And over time, just like, I guess, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but kind of just, putting the fame and money idea away and not thinking about it in that way anymore, just doing that without actually knowing what my true value was and wanting to create and do this, was already super helpful, and became a lot more like, I still didn't fully understand where it was coming from that I wanted to do this sort of stuff, but I knew that like it was coming from a better place than, fame and money. Because fame and money are fine if that's what you want. There's no shame in doing that. But like, it can be kind of a shallow thing. So depending on how you want to look at it, and for me, it was very much like a shallow concept that like, this is what I want for myself. So being able to kind of tuck that away and being like, yeah, that's not who I am anymore. That's not how I want to pursue things. At least started to open up some, ideas. So what I've kind of realized, and I'm still not 100% sure if this is correct, but this is what I'm going with today. I've replaced that with a new experience of, or a new value of creating a shared experience. And that goes, for my podcast and for my writing as well. And I found that this is a lot more fulfilling than anything else that I've come up with so far. Especially on the podcast, like, I'm trying to create like a little community here, right? Through the podcast, through social media, through my website, where, women who are of a certain age and in a certain part of their life, might find something inspiring or hopeful or, a different kind of thought process. And, that's what I've realized, like, why this has become important to me, because it is way more than just like a get rich quick type scheme. It's definitely like, I want to, help people have like, see a different way of looking at the world, which isn't necessarily a popular one. Philosophy is really scary to people to talk about, and to think that, you could open up a book and understand what's going on. So, I feel like somebody who looks like me, who talks like me, who's in the position I'm in, if I can read philosophy and get something out of it, anybody can, sort of thing. So I think that like creating a shared experience in that way is really helpful. And I guess helpful in my value and keeping me motivated and wanting to do this. And then it also works for my writing as well, because, I write screenplays, and movies are very much a shared experience. So, that one was a lot harder to get on board with, because it's when you think of the big picture and like, will my film ever get made, it's kind of like disheartening to think that like this thing will ever get bought and made. But what I've come to realize is like, that doesn't even matter at this point. Like, just being able to write something and be able to have this creative scenario, it would be amazing if I could share it in, a public way, like in a movie, like it being made into a movie. But, that's like, I realize the opportunities in that are very limited. And so the best I can do is at least write it. Like, I can't even begin to think about a shared experience if I don't write it. So that one has started to like get me around a little bit more. But this thing, that idea that I'm creating a shared experience, that is very motivating and very fulfilling to me at this point, because, it's no longer connected to something that's outside of my control, right? Now my value is tied into something that I very much have control over, and whether anybody sees the screenplay, whether anybody watches or listens to the podcast, I'm at least putting it out there, and I'm having this experience shared the best I can, right? So that's a little bit of like my current thought process and my current values around why I do the podcast, and why it's been so much better and for myself, and for keeping me committed and wanting to do this and showing up every week with this thought process than with my past thought process. So I'm sharing all of this with you because, I hope that this example today is inspiring to you. If there's something that you really enjoy doing, or that you would really like to get into, and you're kind of stuck figuring out how it fits into your life, you can change your values, and I've talked about that before, and you can change them to how they better suit your life. It's very hard though, and it takes a lot of time of, figuring out what isn't working for you, and then kind of like waiting for it to show itself, and spending time thinking about things and why you want them in your life and why you're doing them. I had to change my values because I'm not getting paid to do this. When money is our only motivator, or when certain things are our only motivator, I do another episode on motivation. Like, a lot of people talk about motivation as if, it's this fleeting thing that, like, I think a lot of times people confuse inspiration with motivation. Motivation is every time you get up to do the thing that you want to do, that's hard to do, whatever, motivation, when you need to work out and you don't want to work out and you work out, that's motivation. You've motivated yourself into working out, right? Sometimes you might wake up and feel very inspired to work out, and you want to work out, and on those days, it's really great, right? It's usually a little bit easier workout because you actually want to do it. You feel inspired, right? But people think that's motivation, and to me, that's inspiration. So, when we have the values that will motivate us too, because the value is what you think about when you don't want to do the thing, right? So when I, feel a little tired and I don't want to make the podcast, or, I'm struggling coming up maybe with a topic or something, the value of creating a shared experience is what keeps me figuring it out, makes me problem solve, makes me, manage my time maybe a little bit better to have more energy to make it next time. It makes me show up every single week with my podcast. Same thing with writing. When I want to create a shared experience, then when I show up for writing every day, even though I'm not getting paid to do this, even though I don't know if anyone will ever read it, that's what gets me motivated to show up every day. So, when the things that are there to motivate you, your values, are not in line with what's working in your life. So, like, for me, I couldn't have this stuff be motivated by money. I had to, again, money would be awesome if I could have it, but, that's just not my scenario right now. And so it'll never be my scenario if I stop creating. It'll never be my scenario if I don't write the screenplay, or if I don't keep trying to, create a community here with the podcast and, try to get more listeners. The money will never come then. So it's like, will it ever come? I don't know, but it doesn't matter to me anymore, right? So, when you're thinking about these things and you're trying to figure out, like, what keeps you on a steady path, I guess, this is the sort of mindset that you have to have. Like, what is going to keep you showing up all the time? So the last thing I want to hit on, which is kind of my favorite point of this all, is that I have found an amazing opportunity within this new mindset, and it all happened because I allowed myself to no longer care about any sort of monetary, I can't talk today. Any sort of money received, right? I'm not worried about, how many followers I need right now. I'm not worried about, sending my screenplay off, like all of this stuff. I don't care anymore because money is no longer a factor. I just do it on my own time, on my own schedule. There is, at least with the podcast, there is like, I have to have it out every week. So there is a little bit of, time pressure there that I do have to like pay attention to. But other than that, like everything else is up to me. And so basically, because I'm not getting paid, I have so much integrity in my work. And I think that, again, not that getting paid for anything is bad, because it's not. But when somebody starts to give you money for something, then they start to call the shots, because money rules, right? So, if I, for instance, got an advertisement on the podcast, and, I wanted to do a certain topic on the podcast that didn't line with that advertisement, they could take my money away. So that might, entice me to not make something that they would disagree with, which would go against the integrity of the show, because the whole point of the show is to be honest and uplifting and talk about things that might be a little, I try not to be controversial, but, might be a little bit different, or not on the same thought path as everybody else. So, being able to have integrity in this and have integrity in my writing is really important to me. So what I found is just like total creative freedom in all of this. And I think that's really amazing. And again, something else just to be really celebrated about not having to worry about the income at this point, and worry about any sort of money aspect. With my writing, when studios get a hold of the scripts and they pay money for them, then they get to do whatever they want with them. And they might, be nice and ask you first, and that's usually part of the contracts. But then after that, they can fire you, and they can completely take you off of this thing that you created. And now it's no longer yours, right? So at least, which I get is part of the whole thing, which I'm okay with, but at least at this point, it's pretty fun, because I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about anybody questioning why I wrote this scene. I don't have to worry about, maybe this topic is a little controversial to talk about on the podcast. I don't, outside of what does my audience want to hear, or in this screenplay, what makes sense? How can I, stretch my imagination? How can I work on my craft here? All of it, right? It's just complete, total creative freedom. And so I guess that's the point. And I know this episode's kind of different because I'm talking about specifically my podcast, but I hope that by me sharing this experience, like I said earlier, that it inspires you in any sort of creative things that you guys are working on, or anything that you do. When we work a job or something, we're going in for the paycheck, right? Most of us don't have jobs necessarily that they might be fine. We might enjoy the work to a certain extent or whatever, but would you go there and work for free? Probably not, right? So I get it. The concept of putting in time and energy into something is kind of weird, but when you're on a creative aspect, unfortunately, you have to do a lot of stuff for free. But the beautiful thing in that is that then nobody gets to tell you what to do. You get to totally be yourself. You get to be authentic. And you get to keep your integrity, and as far as where you're gonna take your piece of art, So I hope that this just inspires any of you that have maybe been a little bit challenged with some things. Maybe you are in a similar scenario like me, where there's something that you do and your family is like, why do you do this? Or your friends are like, why do you do this for free? This is crazy. Sometimes we just do stuff for us, right? This is definitely a creative outlet for me, and it's fun, and I love having the community that we have. So, yeah, I just I know it's just a weird thing to put so much time and energy into stuff, because we're so used to getting money for putting in this much work, right? But, sometimes you have to build it first, and then they will come, right? I've never actually seen that movie. I'm from Iowa, and I've never seen that movie. Anyways, So, yeah, that's about it. Again, I hope you guys found this episode inspiring, thought-provoking at least, give you something to kind of think about. Having creative freedom is pretty amazing, and for me, it's the silver lining. Like, it would be amazing to be making money doing the things that I do, but it's just not happening right now. And so, like I said, like, am I not going to create because I'm not getting paid? No, like, it's in me to do this stuff. I'm very unhappy when I'm not being creative. So, yeah, this, it just is what it is, and you just got to look for the beauty in all of that. And right now, being unattached from money in that way is actually very beautiful because I get to do whatever I want. So, all right. Thank you guys for joining me for another week's episode. Please share with a friend. Please check out the link in the bio where all my other links are. You can go to my social media pages, my website. There's Amazon book recommendations if anybody is looking for some books that we've talked about in any of the episodes. Those are some of my favorites. So, again, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and cheers. I'll see you soon. Bye.